The town may be kind of small, but these folks have big smiles and big hearts, and they know what it is to have simple fun down our way, where old-fashioned singing and homey gatherings make living mighty pleasant.
Such a powerful, powerful art form.
Definitely. It's quite unique, isn't it? There's nothing else like it.
I mean, we lost David Crosby, right? We've lost many people in the past month, but David Crosby. And what a voice for counterculture. You know, and those songs will live on and on and on.
Yep.
I love that we can tie Biss to David Crosby as voices for counterculture.
It's what we do.
Keep rolling.
Welcome to Abandoned Albums, the documentary podcast where we take a closer look at some albums that may have been forgotten about over time, some albums you might not even know existed, and some albums by up-and-coming artists we think you should know about. I'm your host, Keith R. Higgins, and joining me, Mr. Jeff Calhoun.
Glad to be back on Abandoned Albums with you, Keith.
On this episode of Abandoned Albums, we talk with Manda from the band Biss.
The paper doesn't give many details. Tell me about this.
The mixed bag of influences is huge here. You're going to hear punk, you're going to hear ska, you're going to hear Glasgow, Scotland. They were obviously exposed to that third wave, madness, the Specials. There are moments of that. There are moments of disco, electronica. I think for me, the revolutionary punk. I mean, these were politically minded, very female positive kids. They were talented with a big ambition and a really healthy pulse on what was cool. They were trendsetters to me. They consistently released great music. Here is our conversation with Manda Rin from Glasgow, Scotland's Biss.
I'm in New Haven, Connecticut. I'm in Connecticut.
And I'm in Birmingham, Alabama.
Well, I'm in Glasgow, Scotland.
I fear that I might gush a little bit on this episode. I've been a fan since day one.
Aww.
I was working college radio when the first EPs came out, and I don't know that there was ever a set that I DJ'd on the air that I didn't play Biss.
Oh, thank you. I'll get all gushy, not you.
I think he's just getting started.
It's true. And Keith and I are huge music nerds, so we'll go very deep on some of this stuff.
Cool.
I want to start at the very beginning with the name of the band, and I'm not trying to fact check Wikipedia here, but I feel like there are two conflicting stories about where the name of the band comes from.
Okay.
In the music video for Starbright Boy, there's kind of a narrative about this Biscuits record store that you worked at as kids, and that's where the name of the band came from. But Wikipedia says that it's from the song Twilight of a Champion from the and the lyric Black Iron Sky.
Yeah, Black Iron Skyline.
Yeah.
Yeah, because when John and Steven first started a band when they were at school, and I mean so young, like super duper young. So Steven would have been 14 and John would have been 12 or something like that. It was something really, really young. And they called themselves Black Iron Skyline because Steven was a big the fan. And it was him who came up with that name. And this was before I was in the band, and I was just a fan of them at the school because they played in our assembly hall. They played in the kind of local park, and I fancied Steven at school, and it was like, oh, I need to go and see this band play. I like the guy in the band. And I remember buying their demo off of John. It was £2 at the time, and they're currently actually looking into getting that put online digitally because see the quality of it for young people. It was amazing, absolutely brilliant. So they later called the band BIS with like apostrophes in the middle, and then it just they ended up disappearing, and it was just this. So it's a quite long, boring story, but that's the background.
I spent a good hour today thinking about all the different permutations of how you can pronounce the. Is it the?
You're the first person I've ever heard query that. I've never known anything else other than the, but maybe I'm in the wrong. I don't know.
I've had the same question. I'll be honest with you.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Keith, we need to hunt down an expert and figure this out.
We'll get Noam Chomsky to figure it out for us.
Well, you should hear how many versions we get of our names. So we've got this, then we've got it spelt with a double S, then there's Biz with a Z, then there's the Bis. There's a lot of different ones.
In the current state of the band, you're very generous to your fans. If you go to Bandcamp and search for Bis, you can buy, I think it's like 20 total releases, 20 albums worth of material for like $40. It might be the best value going in all of the music industry.
Oh, thank you. I should put this wee snippet on our website. I like the way you've put that.
And then you go to YouTube, and I think it's Bis the Band at youtube.tv. An incredible backlog of videos and behind the scenes and live performances. It's very fun to be a fan of this band, as generous as you are to us as listeners. There's a lot of content.
That is so lovely to hear. Of course, we've been doing it for absolutely ages now. So it's a long, long time. And as you said, we've got a lot of albums and a lot of stuff. And we've worked to try and get it all online. We'll still get people complaining when something's missing, especially in their territory, one B-side that's never made it to America or something. And we try our best, we do. And we've always believed in value for money. We've always tried to do the best we can for people. And the digital thing is a completely new thing for bands like us who started out not knowing what digital was going to be. And we signed record contracts that didn't even have digital releases mentioned in them. So it's a completely weird world that we feel we've maybe missed out on a lot with the record companies and getting anything from our early releases. And we're trying our hardest to get ownership on a lot of things back. But whether that happens or not, I don't know. But all we can do is put the stuff on Bandcamp that we possibly can. And it's a massive help. And we really, really appreciate every fan who has got the discography or bought any of the records, including the new one, which is only like, I think is it £7 for the new album digitally. And it's just, it comes straight to us and we build that up and we put it in our Bis pot and we do something valuable with it. And the last bunch of merch that we got, we put it together and paid for the next remix that we're going to release, which is by a childhood band that we loved, a dance act called Alternate, which was like a chart-topping act in the UK, and they did a remix, and that's going to be released, and it was paid for by our fans. So we couldn't have done it otherwise. So we really appreciate it.
Can I ask a question around that?
Mm-hmm.
So, you signed a contract, and you mentioned just earlier that some of those things, some of the music that you released, is it safe to say that those contracts, they're holding on to those songs and not releasing them to you so you can release them?
Well, that's the thing that's disappointing, is if they're not going to do anything with it, like re-release it, then at least give us the option to. But I think they want to hold on to it digitally. There's maybe, I don't know, some persuasion to get them back for doing physical releases. We've got different territories for our stuff. So the UK was Ouija through Beggar's Banquet, and they're a really good independent company, and I think that there's maybe some chatting to them we can do. However, in America, Grand Royal and Capitol, that whole thing doesn't exist really for us anymore. So, and we don't have a contact, and we just find it very awkward, and we don't really know what to do with that one. So if anyone's listening who used to work at Capitol when we were with them, or Grand Royal, then yeah, get in touch, because we'd love to get it sorted for giving it to our fans.
And it should be stated, you were popular quickly.
Get out of my way.
Sure, Kandy Pop, push it down, pull it up. Sure, Kandy Pop, just don't let the music stop. Sure, Kandy Pop, push it down, pull it up. Sure, Kandy Pop, just don't let the music stop.
You got the brains, I got no run. You wanna stop? I keep it on. You got the brains, or so you say. Maybe you'll see things another way.
I get better things to do.
You're galactic,
Can hang around with you and you.
you're galactic,
I get better place to be.
interactive,
You know the only one is me.
you're galactic.
Sure, Kandy Pop, push it down, pull it up. Sure, Kandy Pop, just don't let the music stop. Sure, Kandy Pop, push it down, pull it up. Sure, Kandy Pop, just don't let the music stop.
Kandy Pop, Kandy Pop, Kandy Pop, Kandy Pop.
Sure, Kandy Pop, push it down.
It feels like that first EP was a match in gasoline, and if my memory serves, there was a little bit of a bidding war for you in America amongst labels, and you ended up with Grand Royal because, well, I started to say because it was the Beastie Boys label, and I don't know that that's true. Did the Beastie Boys ownership of the record label influence you in any way?
Well, we can't say that it didn't, because we're massive Beastie Boys fans and always have been. And I remember when I first met Steven and he saw that I had the Beastie Boys Check Your Head album in my CD collection, he was like, ooh. So it was just, we've always loved them, always liked them. And when we got all the labels getting in touch, there was 5 big ones, and they all pitched in to fly us out to America. And at this point, I'd never been to America before, so this was a massive thing for me. And we got picked up in a limo, and we got put up in the most amazing hotels that we now see in movies and we read about in memoirs of other bands. Like, we got to stay at the Sunset Marquee in LA, and Morrissey was there when we checked in. We saw Slash from Guns N' Roses, and it's like, this just doesn't happen to normal everyday life in Glasgow. So it was really exciting, really, and they treated us really good, to be honest. All the different labels who wanted us, they were very kind, and I can't remember what label it was. Excuse me if you're listening, but they took us to like a beautiful Japanese restaurant in LA, and we get taken to a diner in New York, and that was, again, these are new things to a Scottish band, and it was so exciting. And the fact that they knew we would like that, and one of the labels, I can't remember who it was, or was it DreamWorks? I think DreamWorks took us to No Life Records in LA, which was on the main road, and it was just amazing getting treated so nicely like that. But yeah, the Beastie Boys and Grand Royal, they kind of sung the same language. And when we went to their office to meet them, Mike D's just sitting at his desk, and they ordered in pizzas, and they're sitting on the floor, and it was just really relaxed and really nice. And we got to see their music studio, and they had like a basketball ring in another room, and it was like, this is just amazing. And because we're big fans, we're really, really taken by the way that they worked. And the big thing that we always wanted in our contracts, UK and worldwide, was just having control over our stuff and getting to choose the artwork, not having someone telling us how we've to dress or look, and get to choose the singles we release. And they spoke the same language. It was really, really good.
The Ouija Wikipedia entry cites that the label was associated with the UK Riot Girl scene.
When women's frustrations with the punk scene began to spill out in the early 1990s, it didn't actually start as music. Many women felt that they had no voice within the scene, so they created a space where they could speak freely. Fanzines. As far back as 1976, the London punk zine Sniff and Glue wrote, "Punks are not girls." So it was perhaps fitting that women like Toby Vale started to use zines to respond to that very same sexism. Check out this passage she wrote in Jigsaw, a zine of her own publishing. "I feel completely left out of the realm of everything that is so important to me." And Vale wasn't the only woman that felt like this about the punk scene. Kathleen Hanna had similar feelings when she and Vale formed their own zine together called Bikini Kill. Around that time, two women named Alison Wolfe and Molly Newman were also collaborating on Girl Germs, a seminal feminist zine. With zines having brought them together, these women decided that if they really wanted to get a message to the punk community, the best way to do it was through punk's main vehicle, music.
Riot Girl is something that it doesn't define BIS, but it's one of the elements in there. As the female voice in the band, was that something that was important to you?
Oh, absolutely. When I first started the band, I couldn't really play very much. I still can't, but I didn't have the confidence to even give it a go, and I didn't sing, and I was just a fan of music. That was the only thing that I really did. And it wasn't until getting into Riot Girl bands, which I was only 16, so there wasn't, tons of them at that time, but Huggy Bear and Bikini Kill were around, and Huggy Bear were doing a tour with Mambo Taxi in London, who I really like. And when I went to see them, I was just completely blown away because I'd never seen a band like Huggy Bear on stage before, and I just thought, wow. And I just wanted to be like that. And it's so inspiring when you see that kind of thing. And then I get into Bikini Kill, and we were offered to play with them in Glasgow. And this is before we even had these record deals. And it was with a Glasgow band called Longleg. And it was just a very punky, really good gig to do. And they offered us other gigs to play with them. So it was a Bikini Kill, Team Dresch, and BIS getting to play in Ireland, London, and Glasgow. And it's like my dream. And these kind of ladies are just so inspirational, and it made me feel like I was doing something that was right, and the audience was responding in such a nice way where they just really liked what I was doing. And no matter how I felt about myself, they were liking it, and it makes you feel even better. And I was getting criticized by the press a lot. I was getting ridiculed by the NME, by the Melody Maker, saying I couldn't sing and I was fat, and all these really kind of lame ways of putting someone down. But the fans kept me going because they loved it and they liked it. They saw I was normal. They saw that I was just giving it a go, and I was singing about things you don't really hear about in the charts very often. And I'm still doing it today because of those fans.
For you as an unsigned band at the time to be selected to perform on Top of the Pops, this was a very big deal for your group.
It was mind-blowing. It really was.
And you guys were kids. You were like teenagers, right?
I was, what age was I? I was 18. Was I 18? Yeah. No, 17. I was 17, just about to turn 18, I think. And John's a year younger than me, and Stephen's a year older. And we got offered our first ever UK tour, and it was with a band called Super Furry Animals. And they were really great. They're from Wales. And we were just doing a joint headline tour because we were both just up and coming, getting talked about bands. And it was exciting. And we were just on the road, and we got a call from our manager to say, the producer of Top of the Pops, a guy called Rick Blacksell, really loves your band and wants you to go on Top of the Pops as an exclusive. And we were just like, what? And I remember going to a public payphone to call home and say, Mom, Dad, I'm going to be on Top of the Pops. And it was just so weird. And because of that performance, we ended up charting to number 25, and we went back to do it again 2 weeks later. So it was so bizarre, and I'll never forget it, even though it's now 25 years ago. And it popped up on the screen, like kind of introducing her name, and it says, Manda Rin has just passed her driving test. So I'll always remember that I passed my driving test that year. Good memories, and God, I'd love to do those kind of things again, but who knows? Top of the Pops doesn't even exist anymore. So we've kept going longer even than them, and even, NME's not even in paper print anymore, or Melody Maker doesn't exist, Select Magazine doesn't exist. So this kept going, and all these things didn't. So yay.
The British press is notorious for being kind of mean.
Yeah, and it's terrible that everybody's aware of this, and we weren't at the time. I think I've always been quite naive, to be honest. Stephen has always been big on reading up in magazines, and he had a subscription to the NME, and he was very into reading every single article, but I just went along with everything, and I wasn't ready for it at all. I went to photo shoots just smiling in them. I didn't do the kind of the things that other people do, and I've learned a lot. It's the privileged position that we're in, and I always want to use that. I like people who use their power to try and get things across to people, and there's maybe some songs I've been quite lazy with, and I don't feel I've used it enough to get things across that I should, and I feel like I should be more obvious with what I'm trying to say. I maybe tried to be too clever and hide things, but I think in the next things I'm going to do, I've got a lot more to say.
The past 2 releases, I feel like your voice is very confident.
Well, thank you.
You were a part of an era of music. You toured with the Foo Fighters, and you appeared with Garbage and Luscious Jackson and Gary Newman. You shared the stage with and are woven into a tapestry of music that's really important to a lot of people.
We're so lucky.
Yeah, what does that feel like?
It was difficult because you get a lot of bands like that who have diehard fans, and a lot of them were older than our age, like our generation, and they instantly just don't like you because you're kind of mucking about, having fun, and just screaming on stage, and they want a serious rock band. And so you get those kind of people, and we got a lot of abuse for that as well, but we're prepared for it. And to be honest, I quite liked being first on. We were talking about this recently, saying we miss the days of just sound checking, go for a pee, and then you're back on stage within half an hour. It's brilliant. And then you're done, and your stuff's all set up ready for you. You don't have that changeover thing. And it was nice. And when you're not the main band and you're just you can just kind of get away with what you're doing a lot of the time. But yeah, there's a lot of big bands, because we did the Cardigans as well in America. And then in the UK, we did the Ash tour. And these were big, big tours. And we'll always talk about them because they're a big thing for us. And the best thing about our sound is that we can get away with playing with that mix of bands you just gave, because not many bands can fit into a bill with Luscious Jackson and the Foo Fighters and Bikini Kill. There's not many people that could, and I've always been proud that we can kind of slot into most tours, which was quite nice.
So who's in this pentaverate?
The Queen, the Vatican, the Gettys, the Rothschilds, and Colonel Sanders before he went tits up. Oh, I hated the Colonel with his wee beady eyes and that smug look on his face. Oh, you're gonna buy my chicken. Oh!
Dad, how can you hate the Colonel?
Because he puts an addictive chemical in his chicken that makes you crave it fortnightly.
You talk about your sound and your ability to be a little bit of a musical chameleon. You can blend in with a lot of different scenes. Is that because of the diversity of influences? I mean, there are elements of electro, there are elements of punk rock, there are elements of pop. it really is a wide variety. There's some ska influence. I've heard the backbeat in there several times in tunes. I mean, there's no one genre that you can be pigeonholed into.
Yeah, that's a lovely thing for you to say. And I think the main reason for that is because there's not just one songwriter with this, where that's the situation with a lot of bands, but all three of us have something to offer. And John he brought the kind of the Gary Newman and the Specials and the two-tone kind of influence to this. And Steven, he brought a lot of the Adam and the Ants and Human League and a lot of the 80s bands into it. And I like a kind of mixture of what they like as well, but add to that the Riot Girl and pop music. So I brought the Bikini Kill, the Huggy Bear, the X-Ray Specs, the Slits, and that kind of sound that I just absolutely love. So they put that all together, and yeah, you get something quite odd and quite Biss. And we are a very odd band. We do listen to our music and go, God, we actually are quite strange.
And I think one of the reasons you're successful is sometimes you hear two vocalists sing together and you think, those people were born to sing together. And when you get three vocalists that sound like they were born to sing together, I think you get into something that's quite special and unique. I spent 30 years loving this band and never knew that John and Steven were brothers.
It's because Steven doesn't have the surname Disco. I think that confused a lot of people. But yeah, they're brothers, and I'm just in the middle. So I was always the odd one out. But it does make their vocals sound really good together. I think a lot of siblings in bands like Beach Boys or whoever, something just sits really nice when they can do that. There's times where I do feel like I kind of ruin it because I'm not as pitch perfect as they are, but there's something that kind of it sits well, and yeah, we can comfortably agree.
I can only hope they get along better than the Gallagher brothers.
It's a nasty scar. What, he cut you?
No, it's a surgery scar. I gave him one of my kidneys.
And
he drinks like a fish. He's always pissed, steaming, drunk. He's gonna ruin my kidney.
It's my kidney now, you bastard.
Boy, and what if I take it back?
What if I smash a brick in your face, you brummy little bugger?
Rodney, get my butchering tools. I'm gonna deboard him like a shank.
I hope you got a thirsty mop, laddie, because this is gonna be a bloodbath.
You're a dead man!
That's not a very nice way to speak to your only brother.
Oh, that's no fair. I love you!
I love you! God, I love you so much it hurts.
It hurts! I love you! I love you! Ditto! Just like in the movie Ghost. All right, perhaps we can have a wee taste of Scotch.
That's the thing. The two of them are so different. Like, John is just so chilled and so laid back, and he's an absolute genius on the guitar. He's absolutely amazing, and Steven very talented too. But he's the kind of feisty one, and he kind of takes control of a lot, and you need that. You need a front person that's got a lot to show and to say, and he's got a wee brother that just kind of goes along with it. So it works. It works, and I can't see it changing, thankfully, which is nice.
Very true.
It's a great balance because you say front person. I think a lot of people would identify you as the front person of the band.
It did feel a bit strange saying that, but he's more of a front person, I suppose. If you've not seen us play before, if you're listening, the three of us are at the front of the stage, and the three of us all sing, but Steven's in the middle, and he's the one that seems more comfortable, and he's got more of a presence, I suppose, on the stage. It took me quite a while to actually be able to sing with the band. I didn't even sing when I first joined, and it wasn't until I did the song "Kill Your Boyfriend" in the beginning that people were like, "Whoa!" And then I enjoyed it so much, I sang more. But it took me a while to kind of come out from being stuck at the at the side hiding as much as I did, and it's nice to take the mic out the stand and just have a bop about. And yeah, I'll be honest, I do need a glass of wine to get the courage to do it, to be honest. I don't have the same confidence as someone like Steven, but I'm proud of what he does, because you need that. You need someone to take the control of the stage, because I can be quite shy at times, and it kind of works. We've got the mix, I think.
What was the thece revolution?
That was just it's maybe a way that you say things in Scotland. If you say something small, you would say it's teensy, like something a bit teensy, like it means it's small. So we thought of this hilarious idea of saying teensy that makes it sound cool, and it just seemed to work. The same way that we came up with like the new Transistor Heroes. It's just come out with these big and exciting words and things that just look cool because you're just in your teens and coming up with stuff, and it worked. And we still play the song Teensy Power live, which is, I think it kills Steven vocally, but I like it.
Songs that mention Teensy directly: Teensy Power, Team Theme, Tell It to the Kids, Sweet Shop Avengers, Rebel Soul, Ninja High School, Click Suck.
Wow, that's the first time I've ever heard someone mention that. Wow. We could do a quiz question.
Yeah, you were almost on the way to being like a KMFDM self-referential thing, and then you got away from it. Fast forward to Return to Centr. There is a song on Return to Centr that I think showcases you three as writers so beautifully well. The End Starts Today.
Oh, okay.
This song to me sounds like it should be the soundtrack to the world's most frequently aired commercial for a fancy car. You know, the intro with the strings and somebody like pulling their sunglasses down, and they put the car into gear. And when the song hits at I think it's the 8 or 9 second mark, not that I've studied the song that intimately, but it's at the 8 second mark when the band fully comes on and the song realizes itself. The car takes off in the commercial, and there's burning rubber, and you know the beautiful woman rolls the window down. It's It's an amazing tune. There's a cinematic quality to it. I wonder how much of that arrangement was you.
Well, that was an album that we didn't get a big producer in for. It was the second album, Social Dancing, that we got Andy Gill from Gang 4 in for. But this was just so us. We had a producer who was just the owner of the studio who did it, a guy called Callum McLean, and he's excellent. But it was such an enjoyable album to do, and it really, really was everything John and Steven had ever wanted to do. And that song in particular is one of my favourites. And you know what you were saying about it, it's the kind of one you should get in an advert. It so is. And I hear things like that all the time, and I get so annoyed that our stuff has never been picked up on or covered or something like that, because I think if people had just heard our stuff, it would make a big difference. We seem quite a small band, and you wouldn't expect a sound like that from us. But it's the album that the three of us are probably like the most, and we probably listen to the most. But each of the albums has its own quality and the reason why it's there. But that one in particular, you know, you listen to it and you think, is that really me? And it can send shivers through me if I'm feeling emotional one day, and it can give me confidence back when I hear things like Silver Spoon or The End Starts Today. And it's like, God, we actually are really good. I just wish people could hear us.
But you can't talk about this without mentioning cartoons, because there's a lot of love for the group in cartoons. There's let's talk about you might have to be from the UK to understand this one, but it was BB3B, where you were actually animated into the show.
It was BBC Worldwide were launching a new cartoon, and we'll go back to it, but they'd heard about us doing the music for the Powerpuff Girls in America, and they asked us to provide a theme tune, but also an individual song for each of the episodes. And I can't even remember off the top of my head how many there was, but there's tons of them. There's 20 or something, and they wanted us to be as cartoon characters in it. They gave us a token drummer because they thought it would look strange to everyone if we didn't have a drummer. So we had a drummer in it, even though this does not have a drummer. And it was such a shame because every song was really, really good, actually. And it took a long time to do, an awfully long time. And it was exciting. We get given the script for each episode, and I had to sit and do lyrics based on that episode. And it was just a thing I could never imagine having to do in my life. It was very, very strange, but it was fun. And you got to perform in a way. Like, it's not you doing your own lyrics and your own thing. You're actually being more theatrical with it. And there was one song, I think it called Must Be an Alien. And I've never sung so high in my life. Steven kind of produced it, and he's really good actually at doing that, and he'll just come up with things that he wants to do, and he's saying, no, if you could do the octave above that, and it's like, what? It's so high. So it was very, very exciting to do, and it was a great thing to get asked, but it never took off. And when I hear all the kids' cartoons on in the morning with my own kids, I get so frustrated thinking, why can't my song be on there? I really wish I could do that, because we do fit into that kind of genre quite well. But as I was saying, they got in touch because we had been asked to do the theme tune to the Powerpuff Girls by Cartoon Network many, many years ago. They had given us a showreel on what the Powerpuff Girls was going to be, and we were to just do what we could and submit a song. And it's just funny to think how popular it's become. And it was me who came up with those lyrics, you know, like Blossom, Commander and the Leader, like just all these different ideas for it. And they were so good to deal with. Craig McCracken was a big fan, and they also sent us some gifts for doing it. We got a Powerpuff Girls skateboard. I've got a little snow globe, but I still it's in my daughter's room actually. It's really cute. And it was and a guitar. We got a Powerpuff Girls guitar. I can't remember what you call it's the small guitar, the type that Courtney Love used to have. and it was lovely. A really cute guitar, and yeah, it was lovely to deal with them. But I've also heard that they're relaunching a lot of stuff, and whether they're going to include our song again, I've no idea. But God, it would be amazing.
I think many listeners, when they hear that theme song, will say, "I don't know who Biss is, but I know that song." They a lot of people probably know you, but don't know you.
Absolutely.
Power Pop! Power Pop! Blossom, Commander and the leader, Bubbles, she is the joy and the laughter. Buttercup, she's the toughest fighter. Power Pop save the day. Fighting crime, trying to save the world. Here they come just in time. The Power Pop girls. Fighting crime, trying to save the world. Here they come just in time. The Power Pop girls. Oh no, it's a mad fuzzy lumpies. Watch out, whether the repulsive roach get him. It's evil Mojo Jojo chasing evil out this time. Fighting crime, trying to save the world. Here they come just in time. The Power Pop girls. Fighting crime, trying to save the world. Here they come just in time. The Power Pop girls.
What an amazing soundtrack. I mean, you've got Frank Black and the Catholics were on it. Your song was, I mean, it was the Apples in Stereo were on it. There were a number of terrific tunes on this record. And Ryko Disc was working it. We were spinning it at my station. And the promo guy from Ryko called up and said, "Hey, this has been number one for you guys for a couple months. Like, what can I do for you?"
Aw.
And unfortunately, I was not able to set up an interview with Biss, which was my number one request. But they did send over one of the Mojo Jojo guitars, and it's set up for my daughter downstairs in my basement. I've got the Powerpuff Girls comic book framed, issue number 1 framed around it. It's a piece of pop perfection, if you ask me.
Oh, thank you. I'm really proud of it because, as I say, when I listen to it, a lot of these things I don't even feel like it's me because it seems just perfect for what it is. And I remember back in the day, like even flying to America, and it was Powerpuff Girls would be on the plane playing, and you're like, that's my band. And even at school, when people find out, that's your mum that did that song, it's like, it's just really strange. But I would absolutely love to do something for them again. They were brilliant to deal with, but I don't know what their plans are. I see on Twitter that Craig McCracken's got something in the pipeline for a kind of relaunch type thing, but he's not been in touch yet, so it's maybe not looking good. But
well, here's what's interesting about that song is I think that song is easily the most identifiable of anything that you've done. It's probably got the most mass distribution, and yet today, if you go looking for it, that song is nowhere to be found on Spotify or iTunes. It's a challenge to find a original copy of that tune anywhere.
That's another one that we feel we've lost out somewhere because again, that came around before digital stuff was released, and then we noticed that there was a video of someone doing something on TikTok, and it was a cover of our version of the Powerpuff Girls song playing in the background. And it had been viewed like several million times. And we're like, whoever covered that is getting that. I don't know what the royalty must be, something maybe tiny, but when it goes into the millions of plays, then that's when it's different. But then I remember trying to research it and seeing that the person who'd covered it claimed to be the writer.
What?
And that's when it gets kind of weird, where we don't really know what to do about a lot of these things because we don't have a label. We don't have someone managing us out in America or fighting our corner. So I don't really know what to do.
There's absolutely no reason that somebody should be re-recording your song and claiming to have credit for it. That is insane.
Yeah, it's very, very strange. We tried to get our publisher to look
Yeah.
into it because they're semi-involved in things like that. But like you're saying, I just wish it was available. Like, even if we were getting a fraction of the money, it's not even just it's just to show that we were the writers, just to and also to make it available to people so they can get it if they want. But all that I hear out there is cover versions, and it's our song that we came up with my lyrics. And yeah, I just wish it could be out there. So that's, as you were saying, you know, the availability of stuff, that is the one that people probably would love to get hold of.
The band entered a dormant state where the individual members went and pursued more individual, everyone's still in music, but I think you were DJing and singing on guest vocals on some tracks. John was doing John things and Steve was doing Steve things. Was Data Panic intended to be a new band that was like Data Panic was to be the name of the band when you brought in a live drummer and a different lineup? I mean, it's still the 3 original BIS members.
Yeah, because things had just slowly gone downhill for us ever since Kandy Pop charted, pretty much. It just went down and down and down and down. Like, we're still doing good and still enjoying it, but it just got to that stage where we weren't getting offered the things that we used to, and we'd been dropped by our publisher at that time. And okay, then yeah, so we were just wanting to do something else, but the 3 of us worked so well together, and we're one of the few Glasgow bands that you couldn't connect to other bands. We hadn't done anything else. We were just the 3 of us. We just loved working together. And the one thing that we'd been questioned about a lot was not having a bass player or a drummer, and we thought, well, it might be worth trying that. And we met in a pub one day and we thought, let's give it a go, but come up with another band name. Personally, looking back on it, I think it was a mistake, and I wish we just kept going like every other band at that time had kept plodding on, like Mogwai or anyone else around. But we were just kind of getting so frustrated by it and never taken seriously and always getting questioned. And I think we maybe were giving in by doing what we did. But it's also good that we tried it. We tried a live drummer, we tried the bassist, and it just wasn't the same. It just didn't work. And even though we did try the gigs like that as well, there was nothing like going back to doing it the way we used to do. And it just felt like, yay, this is brilliant. Just going back to what we're used to and what we're good at, and it felt good.
Data Panic was the name of the band, but now is available as a BIS album. And there are some good tunes on that record that I enjoy.
Yeah, there's so it's essentially still BIS, and even if we put out a BIS album, that's probably what it would have sounded like, because we did love it. And there's a lot of those songs that we still play live as well, which they do work very well live. But we had to do the Data Panic thing. It was an experiment, and it would have been a waste if we hadn't released it in some form. And I think it's good that we just put it under the name BIS.
It seems like that was around the time that we started seeing a lot of really cool stuff pop up on the Bandcamp page, where it almost seemed like the group realized we're going to do this on our own, or we're not going to do it at all. And you saw a lot of ownership of the catalog. One thing in particular, the Live at 7A release.
It was 7A where we used to record the Data Panic stuff. That was John and Steven's studio that they owned. Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you. Go back to what you were saying.
Everything on that release had been released before, but you said these are songs that were recorded live, but they are polished up versions and bring up some curiosities, and it says some arguably superior versions. So I don't know if you need the track list in front of you, but I would love to know which of those songs you think is superior on the Live at 7A release.
It's an awkward one, because I think everyone's just got their own opinion on what sounds better. There's going to be a release by a label coming out quite soon. I don't know. I don't want to spoil any kind of news for them, but it's using a BBC session from a long, long time ago. And when we were listening to it, we were like, oh my God, that sounds so much better than anything that we do now with that song. So I think it is weird just listening to some versions, especially old ones, when before you had the good technology and good equipment, maybe everything doesn't have to be so polished. But there's also some songs that are quite chaotic and done quite quickly. So I think everyone's just got their own opinion. So what do you think? What do you think sounded better in that release, Jeff?
Goodness me, you're going to put me on the spot. I quite liked the version of Rulers and States.
Exploding with that gift to help you understand. I came in peace, but I have become angry with
I liked the whole release.
Oh, that's good to hear.
It's one of the many, many treasures that, this Bandcamp page, again, as a fan, especially as a fan in the States where, not everything that you put out in the UK found its way over here. So that's cool to be able to get into you at that level.
We'll try and get as much as we can on there. There is still a lot of stuff that we don't own digitally. As I was saying, the first couple of albums, I would absolutely love to have the ownership of them. So it's all very complicated, and we've got so many songs and releases that I've kind of lost track with it all. But I do feel we've lost out somewhere along the line with especially American stuff where we just don't have any control and we don't have anyone to help us get them back or do anything really.
Let's talk about the Gary Newman tribute album that was released that you had a very successful song on. I love it when a band covers a song. And it's very rare, but occasionally the band's cover is superior to the original. Very rare. Very rare.
Oh, don't tell Gary that.
I know, but I thought that your version of We Are So Fragile, was so good.
Oh, thank you.
We are so fragile. Advertising lies that are whiter than yours. We are so fragile. They could give us a war just to keep us amused. We are so fragile. I can stay here inside and say it's all been done. We are so fragile. Just pretend I never tried. I'll leave it up to you. We are still so young, and it must be wrong, but I do it all the same. We are really so shy, there's nothing I can do except believe in you.
very difficult to track down a copy of until those deluxe reissues.
Yeah, there's so many things we've released and done, because in the beginning we just get asked left, right, and center to do stuff, and we're like, yeah. So there's stuff everywhere, and we're just trying to get it as many places as we can, and it's lovely to see people buying it. It's really lovely when we get notification that something has sold, and America is one of our biggest places for Bandcamp and for Spotify. And that's why it's mad that we just can't get over there to tour or do anything like we ever used to be able to.
It's a shame we don't get to have you over, because the last 2 releases, I will say that Slight Disconnects found its way into my life right at the start of lockdown in the pandemic. And so I get this beautiful piece of vinyl from this band that I love, and I wore that record out.
Oh.
I think Dracula, You Broke My Heart might be my favorite Biss song.
Oh, thank you. That's one we play live quite a lot, actually.
So complex when you write your own rules. You're feeding my needs, oh. Manipulation is exciting, yes. Perfection to me, yo. Your complex is a lip to peel, and the reason I feel like a new game and a breakage to fix. I could not predict no more. Dracula, you broke my heart. Dracula, you broke my heart. I do the wrong thing, I too much not thinking, it keeps me free, yo. The stars fall, I take what I can when you're feeding on me, yo. So do the wrong thing, open up to me, what you started to be, yo. The good girl, unpredictable, leaves no corruption from me, yo. Dracula, you broke my heart. Dracula, you broke my heart. Dracula, you broke my heart.
The whole record, There Is No Point Other Than the Point That There Is No Point, is a song that I could listen to 1,000 million times.
That's good live as well, actually.
See, you're killing me. Talking about how fun these songs are to play live, I'm going to have to come over there. I'm going to have to come visit King Tut's Wawa Hut to see you in Glasgow.
Oh, it's so nice of you to say. And that album, again, so it's done in a Glasgow label, but we have the ownership of it because we recorded it and we paid for doing everything to it. And again, it was just nice to completely own something and just do what we want with a song. So if we're ever asked to put a song on a compilation, it's like, yeah, here you go. I don't have to get permission from somebody. And then our latest album, there's many, many people who are saying, I think this is your best release yet. And I love still walking around with my headphones on and listening to it. And you can get quite emotional listening to these songs. And it inspires us to want to do another one. I don't think we're ever going to stop.
So the new album is called Systems Music for Home Defense. Lucky Night is the opener, and I feel like it's you at your most candid.
You think so?
I do, and I feel like your confidence in your voice is at an all-time high. I don't want to talk too much about politics because that's not what we're all about, but politics are there in your music, and you're not shying away from it.
Well, I think that's what we've tried to do in this album. This is definitely more open than the last album was, and it's definitely going down the right route. And there's a lot of stuff, is political stuff on it. There's a lot of stuff that really frustrates us, annoys us, angers us. And if you don't get it out there in your songs, then, there's no other better way than it. So we think we've done the best we can with this lot, but there's not a time where I don't scribble down lyric ideas for the next one, because there's still so much in our heads, which is good, I suppose.
You know, there was an interview I found where Steven said the best electronic music had a political message. And I was wondering if that's something that you as a band and individually still ascribe to.
Absolutely. I think all three of us would definitely agree with that. So, and it's maybe not a common thing that you would expect to get in electro music. You would always just think, oh, that's what you get in punk music. That's aggressive music. But we've always tried to do it even in innocent pop music. I think even like a song like Lucky Night, we were, you can see the kind of thing we were going for, and you wouldn't normally get lyrics like that in that kind of sound a lot of the time. And even songs like You're Drunk, Go Home, there's a lot going on in that politically. So yeah, there's lots more where all that came from. So I hope we're having this conversation again in the not so distant future.
So do I.
So do I. So you talk about Hillary in Lucky Night. You are keeping tabs with politics everywhere.
It's hard not to. America's a very powerful country, and it's over our news all the time, whether we like it or not. So
sorry about that.
Oops.
So, there's always stuff going on everywhere, and yeah, and you've still never had a female president, so there's still lots to sing about and say about that. So
there is
indeed. I am so encouraged by everything that you've said today, because it all points at ongoing collaboration with your partners, John and Steven. It is music that, for like I said, I think close to 30 years has been woven into my own soundtrack for life. And it brings me such joy that these past two records, they feel new and fresh. They sound like a natural evolution of the group. And I think the music is just as interesting and relevant as it's ever been.
Oh, I want to get a recording of this, and when it goes out, to let John and Steven hear you say that, because it's so flattering to hear such a nice thing. That's our perfect response to doing all this. And you're not the first person, amazingly, to say something like that. We get people saying how much we've meant to them in their lives, and how we got them through bad patches, and they couldn't have done so much if it wasn't for us. And again, we're kind of like, we don't know how we deserve to be taking credit for this, but if it did something for somebody, then God, we're so happy. Then we can't believe it. There's a lot of people who do say this. We mean so much to a lot of people, and it really gets me quite teary at times. It's lovely. It's really lovely.
Amanda, thank you so much for the time and the conversation and the music. I have loved the group for 30 years, and I hope that I get to love them for another 30.
So nice to talk to both of you, and it's a complete pleasure to do this, and I'm really glad that you did ask me. It's one of the most relaxing, enjoyable interviews I've done in ages, so thank you.
We'll wrap on that, Keith.
And scene. Thank you very much, Manda.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Many thanks to Manda Rin for joining Jeff and I at Thunder Love Studios.
Our theme song is Rocket Sled by Blip. Abandoned Albums was recorded at Thunder Love Studios.
Written and produced by Keith R. Higgins and Jeff Calhoun.
Engineered and mixed by Steve Beasley with the help of Mike Hunt. Edited by AJ Royce.
The songs you heard during this podcast were Kandy Pop, Teen C Power, The End Starts Today, the theme to the Powerpuff Girls, Rulers and States, the Gary Newman cover We Are So Fragile, and Dracula, You Broke My Heart. Normally, we would direct you to Stream Bis on your favorite streaming service, but in this case, we're going to direct you to their Bandcamp site, which you can find in our show notes. Take note that you can buy the entire Bis catalog for around $40. As Jeff says, It's probably the greatest deal in music today. You should check it out, and then you should buy it.
Original music by Mike Pellegrino.
If you like what you've heard, please be sure to subscribe and leave us a rating. It really does help. Thanks for listening.
At Twitter, we are at Abandon Albums, and on Instagram, we are at Abandon_albums.
Grazie. Bailey Leaf. Rob Janicki. Mike Pellegrino. Therina Vella. Ronnie Barnett. S.W. Loudon. Michael Janicki. Peyton Janicki. And our executive producer,
Rufus Thunderwolf.
And now, until we meet again next time, I remain as always obediently yours.
Abandon Albums is a production of Paw Print Media.